What's going on, Workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're talking about sandbox elements in 14, how to get more of them, how to self-create those, and hopefully help promote those based off of Frosty's stream for charity. Chris, why don't you set this up, give everybody a little bit of context about the subject, and then we're going to go dive into it.
As we get into 5.5, and there's nothing else until November.
Not nothing, but yeah, go ahead.
we have a handful of seasonal events. We have World Visit, which on its own is a feature, not a benefit. It doesn't actually do anything. It just opens up doors to do things that we've wanted to do that have already existed as desired, and we couldn't get there. There are going to be these moments where things get life breathed into them. The relic grind, of course, got updated. We've got instances in the game that maybe you haven't run at difficulties. We've got stories that maybe you haven't cleared. We've got content as a feature list. But assuming you've looked down that entire list and you've checked off everything you want to do, and you don't want to do things you don't want to do, but you want to keep playing this game, that is where sometimes more sandboxy games have this ability to succeed, where there just is, why are you doing this? Because I want to. And they just kind of get generated. And so watching Frosty host the Butterfinger charity event for Extra Life, they were doing chocobo racing as a group in a bracket. There is no in-game tool to do that. There is no spectate mode, so Frosty had to be in every single race. There is no, it's not built to do this.
Right.
And they just did it. And there was a charity event for cancer after the Soken announcement where people went and got clears, not just content creators, people across the board went and got clears for new players, which as some form of walkathon, bikeathon type thing, raised money for Stand Up to Cancer. Awesome.
Yeah.
So there are these moments outside of the RP community, outside of the GPOS community, outside of places where Sandbox does exist, that the community just comes up with stuff, but it's usually centered on a content creator. And we always say there's not enough content creators, more content creators, and off of charity. And charity's great. Charity's wonderful. It the idea behind it is we're supporting a good cause.
Right.
But altruism is not a sustainable day in and day out lifestyle for society as a whole. There has to be something else fueling us.
Yes, 100%.
So how do we come up with more things like that without asking the devs for anything? Because what's really cool about these events is these were not dev sanctioned. They did not build tools for these. It took no effort for Yoshi P's team. We just took the features that are already in the game and combined them in a new and interesting way, keeping in mind that World Visit is right on the horizon. So the number of things we can do together is growing.
Right. So you bring up a lot of really good points, and we've kind of echoed some of these points throughout our years on YouTube talking about Final Fantasy and other sandbox style games. I've long been a proponent for sandbox elements. In fact, I've even stated here that the sandbox elements that Final Fantasy XIV does have are its most popular elements. The story being, like you said, it's kind of that experience. And some people experience it more than once, but it's a great introduction to the game. And the sandbox, which would be considered glamour, would be housing, our role-playing, are some of the real key identifying features that keep people coming back for more. The community is being aside, but in terms of that. So to answer your question, how do we get it without devs, is the only real radical way is to lean into content creators and into hackers. Because essentially when you look at what WoW's sandbox elements derive from, what Final Fantasy XI's sandbox elements derive from, some of those are core into its design, and some had to, in the case of WoW, be done with add-ons because the game didn't necessarily support them. So just speaking of it as frankly, is that I think Square Enix has more than enough kind of knowledge and power as to what would drive sandbox, but it would come at the cost of them having to actually develop in more player-driven tools. What do I mean by that? Well, one example is the economy. The economy serves, when it's heavily player traded and driven that way, it serves as giving players goals that are beyond or something than just run this 100 times. It's like, if I want to go farm up gil, I can then use that gil for a wide variety of things. So there's a motivating factor. Your example of altruism is perfectly brilliant. In fact, an example of where that could be addressed by the devs in this game, where level boosts would essentially become irrelevant, would be allowing players to sink down and play with their friends play through the single player boss fights with their friends, or at least not drop party. Like there's a lot of these little elements that overall, and then giving that player who's doing that the reward, because no matter what, let's say you're brand new to the game, my brother comes into the game and he wants to go, and we say, okay, well, I can either follow you around this whole time and I'm not going to get anything for it. I don't mind. You're my friend. They're still the other player feels they're imposing and they don't want to do that.
It's still altruism.
Right. But it would be nice to sit here and say, oh, I'm actually getting poems and things like that. So being that there is a heavy dev influence that ultimately has to happen, right? Like to really continue to strengthen up the sandbox. A good example of another thing is Heaven on High, Palace of the Dead. Leaderboard, pushing it into different builds. Like those systems open themselves up to player-driven creativity. We've experimented that with before. But okay, to your rule, we can't get the devs involved just yet. By the way, if you guys have ideas, be sure to post them on the official forums. Like that is a really good way to get things in front of them overall. But to the player, you need content creators. You need people to help bring that to the forefront. Reddit posters are an excellent example. Discord communities are another excellent example, tapping into PvP. But the reason why Frosty's thing is so important, and such a like why this video and discussion is occurring, is because it's brought to attention of more people. I went on this march to end polio with my wife through I don't forget what the organization is called, but you guys probably know. My dad's a part of it. But what they decided to do is, rather than have one big all get together in Fort Worth and show a force that would get into the newspapers and do all these things, they decided to have each individual chapter of this organization just kind of walk around their neighborhood. No articles were written on it. No visibility was written on it. I think a homeless guy said, "Didn't we already cure polio? Like in this country, yes, they're almost done with it across the world." And I was like, okay, well, I'm sure this was a great idea by somebody, but small pockets of stuff doesn't have the ability to kind of impact that. Devs see the big movements. Devs see the streams. Devs see what people are engaging with, and that can then lead to more features like a spectator mode in terms of like chocobo racing. How cool would that be? Like if the game continued to evolve, which I believe it will, I think that's where as a community, one of the things that helps in the chaos of this last year, one of the big things that we've seen from 2020, 2021 is the theme park model only works if you can constantly deliver content to it. The winners are the people who delivered content. The losers right now are the people who haven't. And if you offset that with Sandbox, not 100%, I don't think anybody wants 14 to be a 100% Sandbox game. Then all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's your curated experience. Now go nuts. Blue Mage, another limited job. Ways to take those jobs and just break the game in crazy, unique ways.
Yeah, why they're not allowed in Eureka's beyond me.
Yeah, and to the point where
what are we worried about?
Well, that'd be a question.
You're gonna get Ozma mounts. Like what is the fear there?
Yeah, I would love to know. I mean, honestly, to the community, like if you don't want Blue Mage in Eureka, why? Like, what would be your thing? I'm no judgment.
If you want to have some achievements or something that say, hey, if a Blue Mage is in the party for Baldesian Arsenal, you don't get the achievement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Can you put a different one in there that, like, if the achievement, I don't know the name of the achievement offhand, but if the achievement is called like Baldesian Master, you can have like not Baldesian Master, and that's the same achievement, but now it's done with a Blue Mage. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, yeah, I got an achievement, but not the achievement. That's fine.
Not the achievement.
Same with Ultimate.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the weapon glams don't drop, and the achievement is different, and it says you did it with Blue Mage.
Yeah.
Let us in. Preserve that difficulty for the standard groups. Don't let people get to those weapon glams without that. That has been a long-standing value. But giving us one more way. I mean, O12S has been kind of what I've heard as kind of the bar for what Blue Mages can do. That's where people are like, can you clear that? That's the difficult thing right now. Where I think the game shines, without saying, okay, if we do the right things long term, the features will come. Mm-hmm. Without encouraging people to go break terms and use parsers to improve, the depth to which they enjoy battle classes or whatever. Without encouraging terms of service breaking, and without saying if we do something long term it'll get better, mm-hmm. like a spectator mode, I would say typically where the groups that I think are going to struggle the most right now are the people who wanted an ultimate, have cleared all of Savage, are done with their extreme mounts, and don't have in-game content. For those people, I immediately think back to Scott's own streams.
Mm-hmm.
How much stuff have you cleared at minimum item level? Because minimum item level basically makes the whole game unreal. Like you've got a whole wave of content.
Right.
You don't need to wait for them to release one. Well, I don't like that they picked Leviathan this patch.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, then go pick a different one and knock it down to unreal. And so I think there are sandbox elements for those players. For people that want to play together, maps, chocobo races, anything tied to Golden Saucer, really. Triple Triad now has a mount. Doing all that stuff and then being able to do it in a Discord while standing next to your friend, even if you're just both playing Triple Triad, standing there together, cheering each other on and going to the next person and going in order to all the different trainers, could be a really fun journey. And what fuels that is World Visit with Data Center Visit. Because now at this point, we will have the ability to jump from any server to any server, period.
Right.
That'll roll out this July. That's huge. That is a massive driver of sandbox content, but we need the idea to go with it. It can't just be, I'm going to hop over there and visit, like I'm going to see my friend and we're going to run one roulette together. Well, that'll hold you for a little bit, but getting all 326 Triple Triad cards, even if you already have 100 or 200 of them, is a grind. And it's a grind that's already in game, but what makes it a social thing, in my opinion, is when we choose to do it together, whether that's organized through Reddit or Discord or content creator community. You're right. The advantage of it when something like that is organized through Frosty is that it is possible these Chocobo brackets have already been happening. I didn't know about it. It's possible the devs didn't know about it. I don't think you knew about it.
No.
But because it was done publicly, the advantage of the content creators is that it's public. The advantage is that our gameplay is out there.
It also exposes the game and everything in it to a wider range of players and says, hey, I never have done that. That looks fun. And even if it doesn't become something big in public, that it becomes, like, oh, they go and do those things. That's why, it's unfortunate, and this is kind of where, in my mind, the conversation goes naturally, is that there has been, over the course of years, I think that more reliance on content creators in terms of, story. My name is Bife, and, all these things where it's the question always kind of comes up is that how much is it that there's a positive to letting content creators kind of find these mysteries and share them versus the devs actually taking the level of effort in delivering that within the game's context. And then, this, this is a debate. I'm not making a statement.
There's pros and cons. This is a whole different video.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that.
Do we need content creators as a subject?
And at the core of it, though, it's that we've seen that. And so content creation, whether you like it or not, there's plenty of people who don't think people should be able to share their passion for video games online. And I get that. But at the core of it is how, if you want to have something, that's why one of the things we want more content creators to get more ideas out there, to have people experiment in fun and unique and interesting ways. The fact that we sat down and rated a content creator whose main job is Blue Mage, that in and of itself was that is awesome. That's exactly what you want to see. That's exactly what you want to see people saying, here's this game. I've finished all the theme parks. I've seen all the attractions, but now I'm going to build out my own experience and create my own rules and create my own fun. And that, I think, is what really makes a game like an MMO a very healthy experience, because that allows players to have fun with the tools that are there. We need more tools. We just need more tools within the game. We also need more content creators covering the game to come up with fun and unique ways. And the third pillar would be, if the devs don't do it, coming up with unique ways of tracking that information so that you can make a game out of it. It's not a required thing. It's not a gear or power progression thing. It's a literal fun aspect that can drive people. And everybody's going to have different things. Us doing DPS meters isn't to sit here and lord it over anybody else. It's just to have fun and try to challenge so that I can improve my play through Final Fantasy analytics. It's kind of a necessary evil if you were one to make that case argument. And I don't see a way without it, because individuals can go and make their own fun, but I would encourage you, if you're doing so and you're not sharing that publicly, consider it. Consider hey, we've created these crazy house things. There's a guy who learned how to make an elevator by hacking certain things together in house building. That in and of itself is what I'm kind of getting at. Lots of different ways to kind of have fun in the space. if you found some of that, be sure to share it. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think housing's a good one. The problem is it tends to scratch at a wound, because you go and you say, hey, they're adding all this stuff for housing. How cool.
How
For
cool.
the 5,000 people that have access.
Yeah.
Like that. And people are like, well, my free company has a house. Great. Do you have decorating rights? No, only the leader and their friend has decorating rights. Okay, well, then that's once again removed for you. So like there's housing's a sore subject. But I do think that Glamour's not. Glamour's got a ton of room out there.
Yeah.
And so it's something as we get further into, and I'm sure people can sound off in the comments, all these other things. But every once in a while, like what Chocobo Racing as a tournament taught is that, wow, there's a lot of content creators who hadn't touched Chocobo Racing. There's a lot of people in that chat that didn't even know it existed.
Right.
And so now all of a sudden it's like, well, I raced Brian and he beat me because he's got a higher pedigree.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, he's got a lot of plans in the next couple of weeks. What if I go work on my pedigree and then I casually say, hey, we should race again.
We should race.
Oh, are you still at pedigree 5? Because I'm at pedigree 7.
Oh, how amazing.
And so there can be something there. You and I used to play Triple Triad together all the time.
All the time.
All the time. And when they added the ability to play it in our house or whatever, that was awesome. When was that? To Heavensward? I don't know.
Something like that. A while ago, yeah.
And we would play against each other. And when I first got started, I didn't have any good cards. So we would play with the decks were the smaller number one, and you'd make a really bad deck because all the bad cards became good. And then as I got better cards, we moved to other game modes. And now I think I probably have more cards than you.
Probably. Oh, I would bet that you do. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so we've moved through that process, and we would play until one of us got our wins for the week. And then we would just throw the games until the other person got their wins, because it was usually only 1 or 2 matches. We were usually pretty neck and neck. So it's like, all right, I'll lose to you twice. And finish out our stuff. And it was just a fun way for us to hang out and chat and do something that didn't matter. It's not an incredible amount of MGP. It just adds something to the game that wasn't there before.
Right.
And I think that's what can get people going. I think Blue Mage is a huge piece of Sandbox content. We'll find all sorts of goofy things they can do with it.
That's why if the Beastmaster got cut,
a 20 billion person hunt train, whatever the cap in a zone is, we used to hit it when Ixion was a thing. Whatever the cap in a zone is, how do hunt trains get that big with World Visit? Is there a day that people organize that? Could be crazy.
Could be. That's why I think if Beastmaster was like cut, that would have been the perfect summer time kind of like thing to kind of say, what can Beastmasters and Blue Mages do together, just to really switch it up and change it up.
I only have 10 of my 100 pets. I'm gonna go get them all. Beast's got to go tame those bad boys.
So for me, like, I know I got plenty of Sandbox stuff to work on. I got some more Blue Mage stuff to work on. I've got my Relic stuff. Like, there's plenty of things for me to do, but the nice thing about those things is they're optional. They're not required for my experience both in the current game and in the next game. The challenge then becomes, it's like, well, if they're optional, like, is Brian actually going to get them done? Well, we'll see. Stay tuned for more Adventures in 14 with Brian as he battles the limitations of time and space. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Like, I'm 100% on board for more Sandbox. Like, if this video was, Brian, what kind of Sandbox do you want them to build going forward? Like, I wanted to bring the conquest system from Final Fantasy XI into this game. I think having a passive way of zone control based off your grand companies and that it resets every week is exhilarating. It's fun. It's interesting. It doesn't matter. Nobody's sitting here going home not able to progress in the game because another grand company controls their zones, but maybe that grand company that you're a part of has cheaper teleports into the zones that you control just for the week. Who really, like, it doesn't matter, but it's still exciting to be like bragging rights, like Adders, or maybe Adders was just getting their butts handed to them, and we're like, guys, we gotta go level our Blue Mages out in this zone so we can own it for, on Sunday, and we'll own it for the whole week. Like, that would be something really exciting, just to kind of have a little bit of bragging rights. I could go on, and honestly, maybe
I think the leaderboard around Heaven on High and Deep Dungeon is already that existing thing.
Yeah,
that's a thing. Pharos does solo runs all the time on Twitch, and like solo runs of Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High are hard.
Yeah,
I don't care what class you are, they're hard.
I would really am looking forward to seeing what they do with the PvP changes coming. And I really hope that kind of helps build out and support a PvP, community. Yes, I know the majority of the community isn't the PvP community, so they typically write it off. But I think it's important to the overall health of the game in the long run. And then that all being said, you then marry that with the concept of what if you could do those custom matches in a zone where people could watch and cheer. Imagine Frosty and we're going to do a PvP tournament, but everybody is just watching two teams.
Critical engagements are like that. The duels.
Exactly.
They're
And
awesome.
people gather around.
People gather around. If the person succeeds, you get a buff in the zone. That's cool.
Yeah, I know. So there's things like that I think that the game has already done, and hopefully we'll see them continue to refine that and bring that to the core game experience. But that's going to be those are my thoughts. Chris, any final thoughts?
No. I mean, if none of this sounds good to you, the relic, getting multiple relics, getting multiple Sky Steel tools, like there are grinds left in the game. Going and beating your first ultimate, there are grinds for most people. But where I get consistently nervous in this game is new players who get in. You got a chore in front of you. Don't worry about any of this. Mm-hmm. Go get through your MSQ. 5 months feels like a long time. It's not. Get started. If you're thinking about getting started in this game, you're already late. Like the best time to start was yesterday. So the second best time is right now.
No, yeah.
And so you got to go. And I think that for the group I'm concerned about are the people who they have explored the content catalog and they've done everything they want to do. And anything beyond that isn't fun. You're like, well, then go play something else. I don't want to play something else. I want to play Final Fantasy. And what I want from Final Fantasy is to give me a reason to do that. And hopefully these are some ideas that give them kind of a direction to go and a new goal to chase. Mm-hmm. If they already have everything they want leveled, they've already beaten everything they want to beat. They've got the amount of guild they want.
Right.
I'm going to decorate housing this Monday.
Nice, guys. Be sure to hang out with Chris on Monday while he learns how to decorate a house in Final Fantasy. Should be very interesting. Congratulations again on your house. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. It's been a crazy busy week. Hopefully my energy hasn't been too low in this video. But oh my goodness, it is just, I am looking forward to hopefully a relaxing weekend to kick back and more. So that's going to wrap it up for me, guys, for Work to Game. My name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully you have a fantastic day, and we hope to see you in our next video. But until then,
take care.